It is awake even when one sleeps. It goads the unwise into wakefulness. It removes the distress of the suffering and bestows all desired objects. That's a good sales pitch, isn't it? It bestows all desired objects. This kind of sentence could be taken in more than one way. It is awake even when one sleeps. So what is this saying? That there's a possibility that you're in this awareness even when sleeping, and that there seems to be evidence in the stories for this. We've heard how Rama meditated all night long. We hear about spiritual teachers who've gone beyond the need of sleep because they sit all night in this awareness. Although you wonder why they have to sit in this awareness and not just carry on doing whatever they're doing. Or, this is quite an exciting idea, isn't it? This idea that somehow you can transcend sleep and you can rest in this awareness. And maybe that's a possibility. Maybe you can do this yourself. But if we look at the next phrase, it says, it goads the unwise into wakefulness. So it's not talking about waking up people, is it? It's not talking about waking up the ignorant, except in the sense of waking them up to realization of their true nature. So it is awake even when one sleeps. It seems to make sense then to understand this as it is there even if you're not turning your attention to it, even if you're not meditating upon it or adoring it or looking for it. It is always there to be turned to. It's never going to be asleep. It's always awake. So that would make sense out of these two parts of the sentence. It is awake even when one sleeps. It goads the unwise into wakefulness. It's what prompts us towards self-inquiry, basically. It's always there. It prompts us to go there. It prompts us to go towards it. It removes the distress of the suffering. Now, it's interesting that it says here it removes the distress of the suffering and not the suffering. This is something I've explored previously about pain and how these spiritual teachings are supposed to remove suffering. It removes the distress of the suffering. The suffering might still be there, but the distress is the psychological distress that we experience. So it's not saying it removes the suffering, which is worth noticing, and bestows all desired objects. Well, this is another way of saying is that you've got everything already, because you're not going to be desiring objects. The only thing you're going to be desiring is spiritual fulfillment, and this is what it bestows. So with this sort of sentence, it's so easy to get quite a distorted perception of the situation. So we have to look into it carefully. Otherwise it feeds what I call the spiritual romance. We love this idea of the great meditating guru who doesn't need to sleep and has probably got all sorts of wonderful abilities. But that's just a nice romance. I'm not saying that's not true. Perhaps there are beings with these abilities. Good luck to you if that's what you want to pursue. But I don't think that understanding is actually particularly helpful. In this creation, it exists as if it is a jiva, living entity. It appears to enjoy the pleasures, and it seems to expand in the objects of this world. So we have this notion that we're an individual entity. We have this notion that there's a world out there. It says it appears to enjoy the pleasures, but it also suffers the pain. And it seems to expand in the objects of this world. In other words, our attention is constantly being taken out into more and more things. This habit is expanding, and we enter into self-forgetfulness. So this is the apparent situation through which the infinite expresses itself. Yet in all bodies it exists as the self, experiencing itself in utter tranquility. It is the one soul and cosmic reality in the whole universe. So this is the other side of the picture. We can turn to that side of the picture. We can realize that for ourselves. It says, yet in all bodies it exists as the self. Again, we can take this as some sort of conjecture that it's out there in all these other bodies. There's also the possibility that it's referring to the bodies that we're supposed to have ourselves as individuals. We have a physical body, a mental body, ethereal body, or there's a whole list of bodies according to various teachings. So we could say it's in all these bodies. It exists as itself, experiencing itself in utter tranquility. And I think this is the one, this is indisputable. I mentioned previously about how bliss, it's not always supreme bliss. Utter tranquility is a better way of putting it, because that, I don't think that is open to dispute. It's the one soul and cosmic reality in the whole universe. The whole universe is what is happening right now. It's what's doing all the experiencing. It's what's doing all the conceptualizing. It's what's creating all the percepts, the processes of perception. This is the cosmos. This is the reality.